With this very low brace, I can push the string across one side or the other to get the string line exactly where I want it, and I think that's probably about right. Looks quite even on this limb. I think that will give us quite a nice looking bow. I can put a mark there where I want that centre line to be, and I can just shape the tips in to suit. Also means I can start narrowing the grip just a little, bearing in mind that's the arrow pass. So I can just pencil it in, just narrow it, just take a little bit off either side. We want quite a slim grip with almost cut away towards centre, so the arrow's not going to have to flex around the bow too much. Let's cut away a bit of the grip. I'll make it asymmetric so your thumb sits under this bulge here and leaves you a nice little window for the arrow pass. You can see that's quite narrow. You see it's still almost an inch, well 7/8, and there we'll have the pith disappearing into the handle, that'll look handsome when it's all polished up. The only other thing is this knot here, which I'll pick out and plug, so we don't want to pinch there, but there's no sign of it on the belly, so presumably it doesn't go very deep. I will steam out that deflex because it just makes it look ugly. I mean that far limb is pretty much ramrod straight, and this one just looks a bit bleh. That's a technical bowyery term there. That's got to be deflexed by, you know, a couple of inches there, which will throw your eye and make the tiller look weird. Right, I've got it clamped up for steaming. I'm going to bung some steam down this length of drain pipe, and then when it's good and hot I'll clamp this end down, and that should just even it up nicely. I'm bending it a lot more than necessary, that's just to allow for a bit of bounce back. And I'll lift this end up to help any water drain out of the pipe while I'm steaming it. It's had a few hours steaming. Let's take the clamp off and see how much it bounces back. A little bit. Let's take that off. Nice sound effects there. Take that one off. Right, let's have a look at the overall shape of it. Oh, look at that. That's much better, isn't it? Very nice. I mean, that might relax a little bit overnight, but I think that's pretty good. And sometimes steaming can pull out, in which case heat treating the belly will sort of fix it in place. But yeah, good day's work there. You can see I've now got it to a low brace. You can see that left limb's still a bit strong, so I might not pull it to full draw weight, because if the tiller's not right you don't want to. The basic way you do it is always pull to full draw weight unless the tiller's not looking right. It's not too bad, so it's 30, yeah, I don't want to put it anymore. At the right, starting to work hard. I think this left outer can be eased off now. Yeah, some of that deflex might pull back, so it might want a bit of heat treating perhaps. Well, I think I've got a slightly thin patch there, which would account for it. And sometimes steaming needs doing more than once, or you steam it and then you heat treat the belly, and that seems to sort of lock it in, if you like. I'm heat treating the limbs, the belly side, to get them a bit stiffer, because I'm a little bit low on draw weight, or potentially low on draw weight. Also to take out that bit of deflex. So I've done this one. I've got this one set up. There's the hot air gun. And I clamp side pieces on there so the hot air hits the belly of the bow, but also gets channelled along to sort of preheat the next section. And I move the heat gun along a bit at a time until I've done the whole lot. It's a laborious process, takes about 40 minutes to do a limb. If you do it too quick, which is what I tried when I first started doing this stuff, you just scorch it and it does nothing. It's a long, slow, steady heat. Right, that's done the heat treating on this limb. I seem to have got it more even than the other. It needs to be allowed to cool down. I'll probably leave it overnight. But what I'll do is this knot, I'll dig it out now because it will have shrunk back a bit with the heat. Dig it out and fill it, and you can see the heat. There's some resin come out of this knot and some splits opened up. But that's all well and good because it's the sort of thing that happens as the bow, ages anyway. I think good old twister's got a couple of cracks, yeah. There you can see there's a couple of cracks radiating out from the pith on twister. Right, here we are after the heat treating. The reason for the heat treating is one, to try and take out this deflex, and two, to gain a bit of draw weight. I mean, typically you gain 5 to 10 pound draw weight, because I was in danger of coming underweight, and that's the problem with a low draw weight bow. Just a slightly careless pass of the rasp or the spoke shave, or you sneeze in the wrong place and suddenly you're losing draw weight, or one limb's out of kilter and pulling that one back in, you find you've overshot, it's now too weak, you can go back and forth and you just lose draw weight. So also measuring draw weight accurately, because we're round here. To use any sort of measuring instrument, you want to be using it somewhere near half deflection for maximum accuracy. I'm not going to pull it too far because it was only heat treated this morning and it's better to leave it overnight. Yeah, right's a bit stiff, but I can see we've got I think we've got some draw weight back. See, what happened is the left was too stiff and I extended it back into the fade, took some off here, and I actually created a weak point there. If I don't know if you can see it, it's a bit thin there, when that dark scorching makes it look worse. But the right's too stiff at the minute, but I've got to start going very cautiously. Yeah, you can see we're stiff here on the right. There was a weak point here, so I've been leaving that alone. I need to ease off this lot. But you see, I was only pulling 25 pounds there. If I'm not careful, come in underweight. But I'll just do a little bit and pop it back on the tiller and have another look. A few strokes of the spoke shave, basically between there and there. Popped it back on the tiller. Not much difference. Did a bit more, come around on the edges. Also just tidied up the belly with my cabinet rasp, trying to take out any unevenness and some tool marks. That's looking a bit better. But the other thing you have to remember, when you've taken off wood, you need to exercise the bow because you've exposed fresh wood to the stresses of being drawn. So that's looking a little bit better, but she's looking a bit stiff here still, I think. Just try and get an idea of where we are in terms of draw weight. Well, there's 30. See, 30 at 24. Low brace, we're virtually there. 30 divided by 24 equals that, times 27 equals 33.75. I'm £2 underweight. But there's little tricks you can do. Take an inch off either end, that'll gain you £5. I can heat treat and reflex a little bit. the important thing is to get the tiller right. It's all about the tiller. Now I don't think we're far off now. There's 35 at about 26. So, close, very close. Virtually finished now. I've been shaping the grip a bit and doing this and that. But it's a whisker underweight at 35. So what I'm doing, I'm taking 5/8 of an inch off each tip, which it'll get rid of this bit of manky stuff. And it'll also just boost the draw weight by that whisker and allow room for me to do a bit of fiddling and fettling and finishing. So that's taken that bit off that end, saw this off, put on some overlays and get it back on the tiller. I've got the horn tip overlays done but not polished up yet, and I've checked the string line and narrowed the tips, you know, to accommodate the best string line. I took 5/8 of an inch off each end of the bow, which should just stiffen up the draw weight a little. Before that I pulled it to 28, but it's always a bit nervy, especially shortening a bow, but then being such a low draw weight, it should be alright. £27 at, oh dear, I've come in underweight, £34. That's what we call close enough for jazz, I think. It's still a slightly low draw, slightly low brace height, but the thing with primitives is, especially low draw weight bows, you're better off with a low brace height because it gives you a longer power stroke. People make the mistake of thinking, oh, I'll increase the brace height, that will add some poundage to it. Well, it doesn't actually do a fat lot in adding poundage, and it gives you a shorter power stroke. I think people have done the figures, and basically it makes very little difference. But a slightly lower brace height doesn't do any harm. That's not unreasonable. Slight bit of S-shaped sort of curve. But what I might do is get a string made up, take it tomorrow to the shoot so the guy can have a little play with it, see how it shoots, see how he feels. Just a little illustration of fiddling and fettling where the string sits on the nock. You can see I've made some pencil marks, and you can see that string loop is just not sitting nice and tidy. Whereas I've already done the other end, and you can see that's sitting much a slimmer looking tidy Y with the string line nice and clean. So attention to detail. So I'll tidy that up a bit, narrow that tip some more, get it so where the string is, the cross section is like teardrop shaped. Now I've had a few shots with it, and I've been fiddling and fettling the grip. It did seem to sit in the hand a bit like that with the string on your wrist, so I've just eased it off a bit so that now it sits in your hand like that. The thumb sits there, slightly relieved. Little bit like a pistol grip, if you like. Oh, I had some bloke at a shoot trying to say my primitive bow wasn't primitive because it had a shaped grip, as if primitive Stone Age man wouldn't fiddle around with the grip of his bow while he was sitting there by the fire just trying to make it a bit more comfortable. I did my little trick of chalking up the arrow pass, and one arrow went there. I'm not sure if that's possibly where another arrow went, but it looks like this back edge could be relieved, because ideally you'd want the arrow rubbing somewhere along here. So I'll just relieve there, I'll just relieve this. I just tuned up the arrow pass. I took another shot and it's this one. Don't know whether that's luck or coincidence or what, but a little bit of tweaking doesn't do any harm. And there, that shows where I've relieved along here. There, I've given it a light sanding and buffed up the nocks a bit. I'd normally spend a bit more time on the finishing, but the guy wants to take it with him on Sunday because he's not going to be at the shoot the next week, and neither am I. So I'll give it a quick wipe of Danish oil. Another one in the morning. Of course there'll be still the odd tool mark I haven't taken out, but there comes a point you just got to go with the flow. Now you can see what a wipe of Danish oil does to it. These things. There, sort of picking it up. It's going to look very handsome. That limb looks a bit darker than this one, but such is life. Bit that way.
Right.
Yeah, just going for it. That'll do, lovely.